Welcome in, everybody. A Thursday edition of Birds 365, a special, unique Thursday, Johnny Mac. Some major thunderstorms last night. I was not expecting these. I thought there were just like some regular storms coming through the area where I was. And we got thrashed with lightning and thunder, and trees were down, and the power was out all night. And
Oh
I'm
man,
talking to the
that's awful.
marshal. Yeah, I was talking to the marshal this morning. He's like, "Yeah, you're not getting power anytime soon." So I'm over at Panera Bread. Shout out to Panera Bread, and we are doing the show from Panera this morning. How you doing this Thursday?
I'm doing well. We got hit, but not that badly, so I'm good. I was complaining about my mulch running out, so now I can't complain about that. Those are first world problems. But I've been there in the past, and it sucks when your power goes out. So hopefully Panera Bread can hold for you. I'm in my home studio, so um, hopefully I don't have the same types of issues. But yeah, we're in danger. What episode is this? I haven't checked. We were in danger of not having episode number 806 or whatever it is. So, but we're here.
We are here and we are ready to give you guys 2 hours of power on Eagles Talk. Jason Kelce was down in Seattle yesterday. A lot of good topics for us to talk about. We have Les Bowen coming up and about 15 minutes, so he'll be here at 8:20 a.m. To talk with us and Johnny Mack. So we'll see how the internet holds here in Panera Bread. If it does drop out, I apologize to anybody listening. Speaking of our listeners, I want to welcome everybody in this morning. Wilfredo, Eduardo, Yale, Jesse, Shonuff, Cody K, Madness, Crawley, Jason. What's going on, everybody? Good morning, Birds Nation. Good morning, Eagles Nation. Thank you guys for watching Birds 365 this morning. Make sure you guys drop a like. Johnny Mack, the legend of Jason Kelce, continues to grow bigger and bigger and bigger. Seattle City was packed up yesterday for Jason Kelce. What do you have to say about Jason and the center that's taken over the NFL?
Yeah, it's pretty amazing. We were talking about it a little bit before we went on the air. When they first started this thing, it was sort of quaint and, a fun little thing for Eagles autism. Now it's this giant. People are lining the streets at 4 in the morning, and it's become this thing. And Jason always has the player put on the luchador mask as he was handing out the first Jello shots yesterday. But I hope everybody had fun down there, and obviously it's for a good cause. The charity event, the Eagles Autism Foundation. By the way, they're up for an ESPY award. That too, throw that in the mix for the Sports Humanitarian Award. The Eagles for their charitable things they do in the community, particularly with autism, which is very close to Jeffrey Lurie's heart because his brother has gone through that his entire life. So that's sort of the background of why Jeffrey is so invested in that particular cause. But and we're going to talk about this with Les. Hopefully, Les, by the way, didn't have any issues. Yeah, hit and miss with the thunderstorms that were in the Delaware Valley. So, but he tweeted out something that I thought was interesting because Les has been around a long time. He's covered Philadelphia sports for a long time. Was a beat writer for the Flyers before he shifted to the Eagles. And he just mentioned that, as far as local celebrity goes, sports celebrity, I don't think anybody has ever reached the heights of Jason Kelce. It's like a perfect storm. Part of that is his brother, part of it's Taylor Swift, and you bringing in all these new people and watching the podcast. But I will say it's pretty amazing to watch. And he's got now everybody gets to see the personality that we've got to see behind the scenes for many years. And it's up front. You're going to see it as and the broadcasting aspect of it. But what he's been able to do, and just recently we talked about on the show, the NFLPA has a top 25 merchandising list every year. Typically, it's dominated by quarterbacks. Jalen Hurts was number one this year.
Yeah.
Um, until last year, no offensive lineman has ever made that top 25 list. Jason made it last year. I believe he was 17th. This year, he was second in the entire NFL. Everybody. Patrick Mahomes, Lamar Jackson, Travis Kelce, his brother. for the same popularity reasons as we're
See, I thought
talking.
Travis would have him beat just because of the Taylor
Yeah,
Swift effect.
because of the
Yeah,
Taylor
yeah,
Swift effect. No, Jason beat him. He beat everybody except Jalen Hurts. The Eagles were 1-2. And part of that is, when you become, it's like Super Bowl 52. I remember there were so many more Eagles fans in Minnesota than New England fans. And I was like, well, New England's going there basically every year. Those trips
yeah.
are expensive and you got to pick and choose, and it makes some sense. Not that Eagles fans don't travel that well, but you would see the same thing if they made a bunch of Super Bowls. You got to kind of pick and choose. Um, and that's the case. Patrick Mahomes has been doing it for so long, so he was third. And your merchandising takes a little bit of a hit from somebody who may spike for 1 year, but the consistency remains. But an offensive being in the top 10, never mind number 2, is just unbelievable. Unbelievable.
It really is amazing. I mean, I brought up the Taylor Swift effect for Travis. I almost wonder if it's opposite in terms of how much more relatable to your regular football fan Kelce is. I mean, he married a local Eagle fan. He's chugging beers with everyone. Not to say that Travis doesn't do that, but Travis is married to a superstar. Travis is
Yeah.
married to a. So I think the
The Kylie people are going to come after you, but
no, Kylie's a superstar too, but I mean from a
she's
relatability
a local
element. Yeah, she went
superstar.
to
Yeah.
school. Yeah, she went to school around
Which
here.
ironically, Taylor Swift is from the area, and she was in the, yeah, as her father particularly. There's a great clip out there for um, their podcast, Jason and Travis's podcast, because her dad had been an Eagles fan for years and years and years, and obviously, when Travis came along, he's now wearing Chiefs gear, so
Yeah,
Jason gave him the business for that. But yeah. So anyway, um, yeah, Jason is. It's gotten to the level where it's pretty amazing, and good for him. Glad for him. Um, Great player, better person, entertaining person, and everybody's getting to see it now.
yeah, and it's not going to be local. I mean, it's already not local, but I mean, I think that the legend of Kelsey might really just be beginning. I know his football career is now in his rearview mirror, but he's got a lot of stuff lined up, and he is going to continue to resonate with football fans all across the world, as he has, and you're seeing it right now. Was anybody? I'm curious to know if anybody in our chat was down there in Seattle. Yes, I know we have some people that are local to the area, some people that might go down to the Jersey Shore. If you were in Seattle for Kelsey's extravaganza thing, drop it in the chat. I'd love to hear what you guys, if you guys had some time to spend down there. So pretty good stuff. Speaking of Kelce, Johnny Mac, let's stay on Kelce real quick because he did retire, and the Eagles are going to lose him on the football field this year. I know we've hashed this many times before, but how well positioned are we to move forward? I know everybody's like, yeah, I feel good about Cam Jurgens, and I do too, but it's tough to replace a guy that has not just that level of play, but the stature, the leadership, the on field stuff, the off field stuff. I mean, Kelsey really he embodied the entire Philadelphia Eagles organization. That's tough to replace. Are the Eagles set up to do it and be able to handle it?
Yeah, I think they're set up to do it and able to handle it. The question is, we just brought up Brandon Thorne's offensive line rankings. He's very good when it comes to breaking down offensive line play in the NFL, and he's still got the Eagles at number 2 behind the Detroit Lions, who are kind of above and beyond in their own tier from his perspective. But number 2 is pretty good. And I know from talking to Jeff Stoutland this spring, there's no concern from the Eagles that Cam Jurgens can handle the center position. Now, there's levels to that, and they know he's going to be a good player. It's a matter of how good he's going to be. Is he going to be in the conversation to be the best center in football? Probably not early on. Maybe a couple years down the road. Remember, Jason Kelce wasn't in that conversation. Jason Kelce thought he was going to get cut in 2016. for people that don't remember. Um, so it'll take a while, but the Eagles are very confident that they're going to have solid play at the center position, and their bigger uncertainty from the offensive line as a whole is with Tyler Steen at right guard, and that's why they have a bunch of contingencies, as they did going back to the Super Bowl season when they wanted Isaac Seumalo to win the left guard spot. He started out, he struggled. They benched him. They put in Chance Warmack. They benched him. They finally ended up on Stefan Wisniewski. This year, you have Matt Hennessy, you have Matt Sharping, you have Mekhi Becton. They have a bunch of contingencies if Tyler Steen doesn't work out early, at least. Um, and that's the bigger concern from the Eagles' perspective, not center. I think the silver lining I talked about yesterday, I think it's an opportunity to allow Jalen Hurts to take a bigger hold on the offense. I mentioned with pass protection, you're not going to do it when Jason Kelce's still here. But now that he's not here, I think you have the perfect opportunity to allow Jalen Hurts to take the lead and take ownership of this offense and kind of run it from the line of scrimmage. And I don't know if the Eagles are going to do that. So that's one I don't like. But we'll see. They have an opportunity. It's easy to do now, but I don't know if they want to do it. And Kellen Moore kind of hinted, didn't come out and fully say it, but he kind of hinted that they're going to stick with the status quo, and that's sort of Cam Jurgens taking the lead when it comes to pass protection. And I think that should be the quarterback, as I mentioned with Tom Brady and his comments and explaining all the things. You got to be on the same page either way. So I talked to a personnel executive. That's what he said. It really doesn't matter, but I think it does matter. I think it's important for the quarterback to be the lead in the dance, so to speak, as far as, following along. And I think the Eagles would have had an opportunity to take that step. They still have an opportunity to take that step. They still might do it. But Kellen Moore at least hinted that it's going to be Cam Jurgens, and it can work. They won 29 of 32 games at one point, and
Right.
I call it the best run of Eagles football in the modern era, and I think it is. So it's not like it can't work, but I would just, my preference, and this is my preference, would be to have the quarterback. I'm always striving to get Tom Brady or Peyton Manning. That's who I'm striving to get. Now, it's unlikely that you're getting that, but it doesn't mean you can't work for it. And that's where I am with that aspect of it.
Yeah, I agree with that for sure. And I feel like from the continuity perspective and just the overall, you know, offense, I said that kind of when Kellen got hired. I'd like for Jalen Hurts to own this offense, and that's why I loved what he said in the one comment, about taking ownership of the offense and making it his. Because if you're going to be a great team, and we talk about this all the time, you're going to lose coordinators, and if you want to mitigate how bad that is, then it's got to be the offense has to be Jalen Hurts has to have a full ownership in a way of the offense. And when it comes in, there's not that much change. There's not 95% new. There's a different play caller in the room, but it's Hurts who owns the room. And I think that would be a good thing to have, especially for a young quarterback who wants to have a long career here in Philadelphia. Back to your point too about the silver lining of him taking the next step. Lane Johnson now, he came out yesterday. Jalen Hurts is being a more vocal leader. It's just like all these headlines are coming out after all that talk about.
Well, you got to do damage control
Yeah,
after,
I know. What'd you make
unfortunately,
of
if
the?
there's no
Yeah,
damage, you don't have to do damage control.
that's
Well, you
true.
get these questions, and Lane was on, what was he on? Rich Eisen's show, or I think it
Yeah,
was
Rich
Rich.
Eisen. Yeah, Rich Eisen.
Um, yeah, and he gets asked the question, and what are you going to say? You know, if you're Lane Johnson, that's kind of my problem with what Jalen Hurts didn't say
Yeah,
and what
right.
created
Same scenario.
that's
Lane
like
just passed the test.
like yeah, I my vision for this show, and I saw it yesterday. Like, why don't you have BG on and Lane on? And we can have those guys on, but no offense, my envision for this show was to be more of a sports reporter's feel, You know, if anybody used to see that show back when it was on ESPN, back when it was great. The recent incarnations maybe not so great, but nonetheless, that was my envision of this show, to have the reporters, because I want to make it as objective as possible. Not that we don't have our own biases, everybody does, but make it as objective as possible. If you ask Lane Johnson or Brandon Graham or anybody else about Jalen Hurts being a leader, they're going to say he's a leader and he's doing this and they're doing that. Like, and that's what I expect him to say. And there's nothing wrong with that. But, you know, they're veteran guys. They're not going to drop that ball.
Oh, I'm happy they didn't drop the ball and add to fuel to the fire. So good stuff from Lane Johnson. Let's get to our first commercial break. I see our man Les Bowen in the green room, one of the best guys covering the Eagles for a long time. Always great to read his work, working now for PHLY, and has his own thing, Les Bowen's John. So we'll get to Les Bowen's John. Today is a Panera Bread edition for anybody just checking in. Power was out last night in my hometown. Trees went down, took out all the power lines. The fire marshal looks at me and he says, "You might want to find a new spot to do your show, my friend, because you are not going to have power in the next couple hours." So here we are at Panera Bread. Shout out to Panera Bread. Thanks, everybody, for tuning in. Stay tuned here on Birds 365. Les Bowen coming up next.
If you missed any of today's show on the JAKIB Media channel, listen to the podcast on your way home. Available on YouTube, Apple, and Spotify.